The world seems to be falling apart. All this was prophesied in the Bible. L.A. Marzulli and I are going to talk about precisely that. And L.A. Marzulli, welcome to Prophecy Watchers.
Great to be here again, Gary.
I am really looking forward to our conversation. You have produced Watchers 9, the ninth in a series of very exciting and informative videos.
And we're going to talk myself, correct?
Yes,
Absolutely.
indeed. And I'll tell you, you're right on top of everything. There are so many subjects to talk about, and so quickly. So let's just talk about the thrust of Watchers 9. What made you do it? What were you looking for?
Well, Watchers 9, really, the whole nexus of this is the Days of Chaos. That's the title of the film. And the idea that we are living in chaotic times. I think when we start going down the punch list and we start talking about some of the subjects that we film and interview some of the world's leading experts in these areas, it'll become evident that it's not business as usual anymore. We are in tenuous, tumultuous, unprecedented times.
Unprecedented and unstable. And that brings me to a subject that I'd like to broach, just because it's so huge in my own mind. We live on electricity. We're an electric culture globally. Sure. You've seen those satellite pictures. The satellite looks down and it sees all the lights at night. You can see all the cities, you know, and all that's electricity. What if somebody pulled the plug? Well, you actually cover that possibility in Watchers 9.
We do. We sat down with Dr. Brooks Agnew. He's been on the Watchers series before. What's incredible about this, Brooks understands what an electromagnetic pulse weapon is and the gravity of the situation. If an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse weapon, was actually detonated over the heartland, we go back to the Stone Age. And the scenario would be, you know, you take an oil tanker, you retrofit it, the Iranians perhaps, retrofit the oil tanker, put a missile in there with a nuclear warhead, launch that puppy from the Gulf someplace. That thing goes up about 200 miles over the Earth's surface, detonates it. That creates a shock wave, an electromagnetic pulse, which basically brings us back to the Stone Age. Your car, refrigerator, toaster, watches, cell phones, nothing works. TV, radio, basically modernity is shut down, and we are back as a country to pre-industrial revolutionary times. That would be catastrophic.
And he says it would take 2 or 3 years to recover from that.
At least, yeah.
At least 2 or 3 years.
And millions would die in the process.
And in the meantime, we would be vulnerable to the enemy if the enemy has somehow found a way to preserve his own electrical.
Think of the chaos in the cities when there's no food, there's no running water, there's no toilets. I mean, everything, life as we know it comes to a crashing halt. And people need to understand that this is a real threat. Congress knows about it and yet has never really addressed it to beef up the grid in case of an EMP. They could perhaps, you know, replace some of those, basically the grid. They could do it, but they voted against it.
I was just thinking about police cars. You know, we look at the police as our protectors. They have to communicate by radio in those cars.
That's all gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Wow. An age of chaos. We are on that precipice right now.
The cusp of it.
Days
Absolutely.
of chaos. Now, you're not trying to scare us to death. That's not your purpose in producing this. I think your purpose is just to sound a warning. Sort of like an Old Testament prophet comes to town and says, clean up your act, folks, because chaos is coming. And the Bible is full of these stories. And I think I see you in sort of in that kind of a role.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. That's probably a mantle that's I really don't want to wear. But
I'm not talking to the prophet L.A. Marzulli here, but you do kind of wear that mantle.
I appreciate that. We're a lot of this comes from Jesus' words in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. Those are addresses which we can go to our Bibles, turn the pages, and we read that there'll be, many will come in my name saying I am the Messiah. In itself, we just take that sentence alone is enough to, what is he talking about? That's almost 2,000 years old. Many will come saying I'm in the Christ. At the close of Watchers 9, we show these clips where these false messiahs are, there's one in Russia, there's several in the United States, people that just say, I'm Jesus, I've returned. The guy in Russia's got the robes and the long hair. He's got thousands of followers that believe that he actually is Messiah, and of course he's not.
Yeah.
But is this a fulfillment of Jesus' words of warning? And false Christ, wars and rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times, here we are.
Now, speaking of the coming of Messiah, let's go to Israel for a moment.
Sure.
Because on Watchers 9, you show some very, very interesting footage of Matatayu Glazerson and what the work that's going on with the Bible codes. And they're looking for the Messiah.
This is the work of Richard Shaw, the co-producer and my good friend of Watchers 9. And Richard is really deep into the Torah Codes. In fact, he released his own program, Torah Codes. And what's interesting about this is Rabbi Glazerson has found codes that seem to indicate that Messiah, Mashiach, will come in 2016, which is right around the corner. Actually, in the Jewish calendar, they're already in 2016. So it's fascinating to see that. And this has created like a buzz amongst the rabbis in Israel. I mean, they're expectant, they're waiting to see Messiah come.
Wow. And when Israel gets expectant, that kind of excites me.
Sure it does.
Because they've, for the longest time, the leaders of Israel have said, no, not yet. It's not time. Let's not talk about it. We know he'll come someday, but we don't know when. That's sort of changing, isn't it?
It is a game changer. And the fact that it's more than one rabbi that's talking about this, I think is very telling.
And by the way, the section in Watchers 9, you'll find quite interesting. And I want to just go through a few of the topics you cover. Let's talk about Iran. Iran has been in the news much lately. And you have a gentleman on Watchers 9 who really is an expert in Iran about the things that are going on there right now. A little bit scary to listen to all that.
Well, it is. What's happening, it's a sort of a double-edged sword in the sense that the mullahs in Iran are constantly saying death to America, death to Israel. Even in the midst of the so-called peace treaty that we've negotiated, that John Kerry has negotiated. The number one enemy in Iran, and this is what the mullahs are saying, is Christianity. And the reason for this is, and this is why this interview with this gentleman was so incredible, this man heads up about 300 or 400 churches in Iran. And that's why his face is black, and we really know nothing about him at all, other than this one meeting where he came in. We don't even know his real name. He sat down and he told us some stories which were absolutely incredible. One, just briefly, very quickly, there's a man who lives out in the middle of nowhere, the boonies, no electricity, no running water, dirt hut, stone walls and a thatched roof type of deal. And this man was sent to him because he received a message. And what happened was, just really quickly, there was a knock on the door every night at dusk, and this stranger would appear. The stranger was in this white apparel, his face was shining, and this man invited him in. And they would sit down, and this man would dictate in Farsi, and the owner of this little hut would write on pen and paper. And so this happened for like a month. And now our friend, who's anonymous, goes out to see him, and the guy goes, I have no idea what this is, and he hands him a stack of papers, and he begins to read in Farsi, and it's the Gospel of John. That is absolutely miraculous. Who was that strange visitor that appeared to this man out in the middle of the Iranian desert someplace? Just incredible.
And so revival can go on even under the worst conditions you can possibly.
And it's happening in Iran.
Wow, that's amazing. But again, it's reflective of the state of the world today. And again, we're talking about L.A. Marzulli and Watchers 9, Days of Chaos. Maybe you have a sense of this yourself. I know I do. As I watch video news, I read magazines, I read the paper. The internet is an absolute, it's somewhere between a cesspool and a thrill ride. I mean, it's just amazing what's coming down through the internet right now. And it is chaotic. That is to say, difficult to make sense out of anything that's going on unless you are an avid follower of the Bible, in which case you really have an information source that'll help you unscramble all these things.
I agree. The Bible is very specific, tells us Jesus warns us of the signs that will precede his coming, his return. And we've already listed them: wars, rumors of wars, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times. The bottom line is, when I go on the internet and I look at all the different websites I go to, all the different news agencies I look at, to glean stories and to write about on my blog and also in books, I'm at the point, Gary, I can't keep up with it anymore.
Yeah, I know.
cannot keep up with it. It used to be several years ago, well, I'll maybe pick that story and you write about it, and a couple of days would go by, oh, here's another one. Now there's so much going on in rapid fire succession that I can no longer keep up with it. And my news cycle is every 12 hours. So what I'm writing, 12 hours ago, let's say, but a couple of days later, it's changed. The story has changed. It's gotten more complex.
Yeah.
And it's global.
You do a section, excuse me, on Israel in World War III in Watchers 9. And as we speak, at this moment that we're making this, Russian fighters are bombing, they are strafing in Syria, and with impunity. They're just basically saying, hey, we're here. Accept it, because we're going to be here forevermore. That's very biblical.
Well, it's certainly a foreshadow of the Ezekiel 38 war.
Yeah.
And I know, but that's where you're going with this. But I mean, it really is.
I think foreshadowing is a good word there. We're not saying prophecy has been fulfilled,
right?
But we're saying watch very, very carefully. And
very much so.
Which we are. And by the way, that's kind of LA's business. He does a lot of watching. Watchers 9. What can I say? Let's talk about. I would just ask you the part of Watchers 9 that you really enjoyed doing most of all. What part of it is
I think for me is when we went to the and looked at the beehives. Because that was amazing.
You got to see L.A. in a
whole
beekeeper's
bee suit,
outfit, right, with a little screen around his head. Why talk about bees?
Well, because there's an ongoing die-off in the colonies. It's colony disorder, and entire bee colonies are being wiped out, and no one is sure as to the reason why. We talked to Keith Roberts about this, and he assured us that, well, it might be because of the drought in California, but there's other people that we referenced in Watchers 9 that say, wait a minute, they're spraying something in the sky, and we've done necropsies on these, I think that's the right word, on the dead bees, and what we have found is that the aluminum content in the bees is 100 times more than what it should be, which is alarming. There are some that say, this gets into the tinfoil hat stuff, I know, but the idea that chemtrails might be spraying something over or into the atmosphere, aluminum and barium. And if that's the case, maybe it's affecting the bees. And according to to this one particular gentleman that we referenced in Watchers 9, that seems to be the case.
Bees. We kind of tend to watch honeybees. They're very interesting. They like flowers. But they are responsible for our food.
Everything.
Virtually everything. The nuts, the fruits.
Everything is pollinated by the bees. One thing was just blew me away. This Keith was telling us that how many flowers does it take to make a pound of honey? I figure, I don't know, a couple of thousand. And he just looks at me and he laughs. It's like millions. It's in the millions of flowers to make just 1 pound of honey. And the bees go out. I mean, I learned more about the bees on that, and it was absolutely fascinating. But the reason why we bring it in is because this colony disorder is global. It's not only here in the States, it seems to be everywhere. If there's no honeybees, things don't get pollinated, crops don't ripen, fruits don't grow, and that impacts the food, and that's what led to the Arab Spring, which is another topic that we talked about.
Wow, it's great. I mean, the connections are fantastic. Let's talk about water. We need water. Water is life. And this nation has been blessed with water in the past. Great rivers, hydroelectric projects.
Aquifers.
And things are going dry. And you know about this firsthand, living in California. You've watched the drought. You devote considerable time talking about drought and the consequences thereof.
We interviewed a man that's lived on the Colorado River all of his life. His name is Andy Jones. And I mean, is he an alarmist? You watch the video and decide for yourself. The bottom line is this, that there are 2 hydroelectric plants that are on the Colorado River. And Lake Mead and the river, basically the water flow has dropped so low that if California does not get rain this year, 2016, if there's not a good snowpack, if we don't get an El Nino, if it's like it has been for the last 7 years, that water is going to drop to a critical level. That means that 2 hydroelectric plants will cease to function. And if that happens, it's a cascading event. Those two plants provide electricity to about 40 million people. And just start going down the list. No electricity, blackouts. Already in Northern California, entire orchards have just been cut down. There's no water to go around. And no one wants to talk about this. But we are right at it's like a tightrope walk here. It's a balancing act. We don't get water this year, we're going to see a series of cascading events, and that's what's so incredible about Andy. Plus, he took aerial photographs of Lake Mead and around these dams, and there's all these algae blooms which are growing. And what happens with the algae blooms? It kills all the life. You know, it starves the oxygen, and so the fish can't live. The smaller fish die first, then the larger fish, and as they're decaying, it depletes the oxygen, so now we've got polluted water. So it's a whole series of cascading events, and the media isn't touching this, but we do in Watchers 9.
And you know, I think there's a connection between spiritual matters, the spiritual health of a nation, and the physical health of that nation. There's a famous story years ago. There was a Texas drought 40, 50 years ago. And a very famous pastor, First Baptist Church, Dallas, Texas, announced, and in fact trumpeted this in the papers and everywhere, we need to pray for rain. And his sermon on a particular morning was about praying for rain and God answering that prayer. Dallas Morning News ran a headline the next day. Has it come to this? That was the headline. Has it come to this, with a question mark? In other words, the editors of Dallas Morning News were saying, has it gotten so bad that we should start praying? And that's the way people look at prayer, I think. You only pray in case of emergency. But in fact, we Christians know that that's really not what prayer is all about.
Pray without ceasing. We pray constantly.
And I believe that this would be a good time to talk about prayer in general. Prayer for our world, for the chaotic events that we see happening. We haven't even talked about half of the things that you touched on in your DVD. And what you're seeking to do in that DVD is just kind of give a general overview of why we really should double our prayer efforts right now.
Well, I think that prayer is extremely important. I think that you know, we're admonished to pray and pray without ceasing. Paul tells us that. We need to pray for our leaders. We need to pray for mercy. It seems like we're like this. The Christian worldview is going this way, and the world is going this way. Everything is upside down. As you said earlier, everything is inverted. Good is being called evil, and evil is being called good. I think we've crossed a line in the country with the whole gay marriage situation, which came down several months ago. 5 people, it's judicial fiat. They just decided that this is now the law of the land, and there's already been pushback, but there needs to be a lot more pushback than what we're seeing now, because this is a major deal.
And our founding fathers actually wrote the Constitution to forestall judicial fiat, and yet there it is.
Here we are.
And the reason I think that all these things are happening is because we have drifted away from the Lord. Quite frankly, the stability of a society, and particularly our society, is dependent upon our relationship with God through Christ. And I think that's sort of the message that's going all the way through Watchers 9. The undertone is we do live in chaotic times, but these are the times described just before our Lord returns.
And that's what's interesting. Why would Yeshua, why would Jesus warn us? This whole laundry list, the many will come in my name saying I'm the Messiah, the wars, the rumors of wars, the punch list that we mentioned earlier. Why would he warn us of that?
Yeah.
And he does. I mean, he does so. He calls out all these events with great specificity. He's not mincing words. It's not like a cloaked, veiled prophecy. It's very straight ahead. Earthquakes in diverse places. And as we know, 2,000 years ago, there's no way to track an earthquake in a diverse place. If you lived in Galilee, how would you know about the Fukushima earthquake if it happened back then? You wouldn't, unless a sailor happened to come by a couple of years later and tell you about it. You wouldn't know. Now our iPhones ring or ping every time it's a 6.0 or whatever you want to set it for. Here in Oklahoma, and I know you know this, a couple of years back, the average earthquake was like 2 a year. Now it's nearing 600.
At this time, as we make this, we're getting close to 600
Which is unprecedented.
And these are earthquakes running from 2.5 to 4.0.
Which is a nice little shaker.
A shaker.
Yeah.
A lot of buildings are suffering some damage. And everybody is trying to find a natural explanation for this, like the oil field fracking or wastewater disposal or whatever. But
Not buying it.
they do wastewater disposal all over Texas, and there are no earthquakes in Texas. Something is making them happen right here. And I, like you, when I read Jesus' words, earthquakes in diverse places, that in diverse places would include Oklahoma.
Sure it does, absolutely.
Of all places in the world for all these earthquakes to be happening. They are, in the words of Jesus, a kind of warning about that which is to come. In other words, that's the way it's going to begin, according to him.
These are the birth pangs which lead to the tribulation period. And of course, like you, I believe that the church will be out of here. We're not going to go through the 7-year tribulation. But we are in the birth pangs, and we're seeing them. And it's going to eventually, it's going to reach such a point that the tribulation will spill out from what we're seeing now.
Your friend Chief Joseph Riverwind is in Watchers 9, and you know he's always interesting to listen to. He's such a wealth of information. Usually, we tend to sort of put American Indian folk tales sort of on the back shelf somewhere. They're very interesting, but not very pertinent to what's going on right now. However, he finds meaning in them, really prophetic meaning. It's kind of fascinating to listen to him talk.
It was a wonderful interview sitting down with Chief Joseph and just hearing from him the oral tradition, which has been handed down generation after generation. And the storytellers in the tribe were picked from childhood, and they would memorize it verbatim, not one word misplaced. I mean, that's the care that was taken to make sure that the stories were passed down for future generations. And what he tells us in Watchers 9, which is incredible, that the trees would start to die from the top down, and that's what we're seeing out in California and other places. The trees are dying from the top down. He also talks about one of the other prophecies about a net, like a spider web in the sky. Now, is that the chemtrails that we see? When you look up, and I was just in Ohio recently, and you look up at the sky, it's like just these crisscross of what I believe are chemtrails. Right. They're not, it's not from normal airplane traffic. This is something completely different. He also talks about the idea of the space station and the grid that we have with the satellite system. All of this was talked about hundreds and hundreds of years ago, even before the white man came, that these prophecies would be a signal that the end was near.
And handed down very carefully because they felt that it was important. Interesting. Chief Joseph, by the way, is a really strong Bible-believing Christian.
Very much so.
And so he delivers this from a Christian perspective, which I think is just amazing. L.A. Marzulli, it is called Watchers 9 Days of Chaos. We're not sitting here trying to unseat your secure world there. We're not trying to shake you up for no reason at all. What we're talking about today is Bible prophecy, which in virtually every way you want to look at it, it sounds warnings for the latter days. And I think we've had it very, very easy in America for the last century or so. In fact, it's amazing. You go back to World War I, horrible time period, the Bolshevik Revolution. The Nazism in Germany, World War II, the return of Israel to the land, and then a series of wars like the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and so forth. And we tend to look back at that and say, we got that all over with. Everything's smooth sailing now. We're okay. We're just everything's going to be just fine. But I think you know, and I know, that we're on the verge of something very, very troubling indeed.
I certainly concur. When we look at the Arab Spring and what we have as a result of that, we look at Israel being surrounded right now by enemies who pose a direct existential threat to her. Hezbollah in the north, Hamas, ISIS, Iran. Now the Ruskies, Tsar Putin is now coming in and throwing his hat into the fray. We look at the tension, again, with Russia and the Ukraine. We look at the Islamization of Europe as, 1 million refugees are pouring into Europe, which will change the cultural fabric of that entire continent. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. And the same thing happening in this country with the race riots and the racial tension that we see in this country. I mean, these are unprecedented times. And they're not, with all due respect, they're not getting any better. I only see it escalating and getting worse.
Days of Chaos. It's Watchers 9, and of course, many of you watching today have seen LA's other work. The first 8 Watcher in the Watchers series. You've read his books. You know that he has a special gift for kind of looking in places where nobody else looks. That's what you are the man when it comes to going to far-flung places and pulling out bits and pieces that other people kind of let lie. And that's why you'll really enjoy this DVD. 1995, but as we do here at Prophecy Watchers, we always like to put together a package. And LA has also written a book. And this book, I think books really can contain a lot more detailed information than DVDs. DVDs have emotional impact. Books give you a lot more to think about. With Watchers 9, we are including the Days of Chaos book, plus a free bonus book by Chuck Missler called Hidden Treasures in the Biblical Text. This book is a gem of little-known prophetic facts. All 3 of these together we're calling the Days of Chaos package. Yours for $39.95. Now, if you want just Watchers 9, the DVD, $19.95. With the book and the Chuck Missler bonus, the Days of Chaos package, $39.95. Just check the online bookstore, Prophecy Watchers. Just tap on that online bookstore tab, and it'll take you right down to where you can watch or see all that we have to offer, including, right there at the top, the Days of Chaos package. LA, we got about a minute and a half left. Let's sort of summarize. We're in a time of spiritual darkness. Mm-hmm. We've talked about a number of things, physical kinds of events, everything from drought and odd weather patterns and odd social patterns. There are some odd spiritual things happening, and I speak of another kind of dark force, the prince of the power of the air, UFOs. You also include a little bit on this subject.
A little bit, yes. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a complete L.A. Marzulli presentation if it didn't have a little bit about UFOs. You have one of the most convincing UFO analyses that I have ever seen. I'm referring to the one where you analyze the movements, apparently, of individual creatures.
This is Richard Shaw's work, and Richard spent hours and hours and hours looking at the footage of the Krumbergaz UFO, which was done in Turkey several years ago, 2007, 8, and 9. The footage is from 2009, and it shows entities in a craft. I mean, it's already been vetted. We vetted it in Watchers 7, talked about it in Watchers 8. But Richard took that photo, that clip, and went frame by frame, basically. And what he found is there seems to be another entity zipping in and zipping out. And that was just incredible. And we show that in Watchers 9.
You can see it for yourself, and you can look at it again and again and again. You'll, like me, you will be absolutely amazed. There are dark things happening, but take heart. If you're safe in the Lord Jesus Christ, you'll be blessed, and your family will be blessed. L.A., you've been a blessing to us.
Thank you,
Thanks
Gary.
for coming
Appreciate
by.
it. Thanks for having me here.
I'm Gary Stearman, and just reminding you, keep watching, everybody. We are. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.